Light in the storm. Prologue. It started with a scream. A single cry, torn through the wind, lost among the trees in the lashing snow. Then, silence. So dense, even footsteps felt like intruders. Maya ran first, stumbling through drifts, never looking back. Someone fell behind. Someone called a name. No one returned, only forward toward the light. They didn't yet know where it was, but they knew they had to keep moving, because if they stopped, the cold would catch them. Chapter 1. 3 days until silence. They pitched tents and practiced reading maps. The survival instructor, Mr. Caldwell, explained how to find north using a stick shadow, while his partner, mission coordinator Mrs. Green, checked how the kids packed their sleeping bags. 15 teenagers were part of a winter education camp in the mountains. The organizers had chosen an old outpost in a canyon with a survival training center. The teens learned navigation, first aid, and how to act in extreme conditions. It was supposed to be a short, 3-day trip under the supervision of 2 coordinators and an instructor, but nothing went as planned. On the 3rd day, they lost contact with the outside world. Mr. Caldwell went to reach the nearest radio tower and never came back. That evening, the only bridge over the canyon collapsed. The camp was cut off. By nightfall, an Arctic cold front hit. A training trip turned into a survival mission. When the last logs burned out, Mrs. Green, already suffering mild frostbite, decided to evacuate the teens to the nearest marked location on the map, an old service station, once used as a temporary shelter. She stayed behind with an injured teen while the rest set out along a trail that tourists had once used. They traveled through day and night. By the 2nd day, a blizzard began. By the 3rd, they were already straying from the trail. The map left by the adults was outdated, but still pointed roughly north. In the ruins of an old outpost, they found abandoned supplies, frozen canned meat, plastic jugs of water. Enough for a break. 2 kids from the tech group managed to fix a camp stove. The others gathered what wood they could. On the 4th day, they were joined by 2 more teens from a nearby camp located in a temporary evacuation center. Their group had scattered when heating failed and panic set in. They'd heard the generators were still working further north and followed the light. That group was what Claire saw when they arrived at the station. Claire's Point, an old service cafe building, stood alone long after the road to the station had been closed. She stayed because there was nowhere else to go. A transmitter, a generator, some leftover equipment, and silence broken only by wind. When she opened the door, the blizzard howled like a beast. The first teen collapsed on the threshold. The others stood behind, faces frozen, eyes wide, movements sluggish. Claire asked no questions. She let them in, shut the door, and started moving. They were exhausted. Claire laid out mattresses, gave out all she had. Blankets, the last of the food, hot water. She turned on the heater, handed out socks and sweaters. The teens barely spoke. Only after a couple of hours did names emerge. One was looking for his brother. Another had been left behind by a bus. A girl from the other camp distrusted adults and didn't believe help would come. The first day passed in silence and care. Claire assigned rooms. The weakest, separately, to avoid contagion. One boy with a fever was taken out the next day. A medical unit managed to reach the station. 3 teens with contacts in a nearby county left with volunteers when the weather allowed. The rest stayed. Claire didn't choose leaders, but within 2 days it was clear who held the group together. Maya, map in hand, constantly checked routes. Jenny cared for her younger brother Eric, counting his breaths. Lucas silently drew with charcoal on wallpaper. Jaden found an old radio transmitter in the storage room and tried to fix it. Rebecca was fiery but helped without a word. Thomas sat against the wall, always nearby, always quiet. Devin tinkered with tools, found a soldering iron, and held it like a charm. Claire knew they were holding on, each to something, a brother, a map, warmth, sound, a glance. The wind grew. Silence thickened. The radio stayed dead. Claire looked at the calendar and marked 3 days until signal. Chapter 2. The storm brings strangers. The blizzard raged as if winter meant to claim everything at once. The walls groaned, windows rattled with gusts, and beyond the door was nothing but white noise. Since morning, Claire stood by the radio, cycling through frequencies and listening to the void. No signals, just static. The food supplies were running thin. What was left might stretch for 2 more days. No more. The generator's batteries were draining fast. The shelter was turning into a trap, heat and light slipping away like steam from a breath. In the hallway, Devon worked quietly, trying to extend the life of an old battery by soldering wires from a toy kit in a salvage circuit. Claire didn't interfere. Everyone needed something to do, anything to keep from going mad with helplessness. Luca traced a finger along the fog glass. Maya checked the map, marking coordinates. Jenny never left Eric's side, his breathing growing heavier. Thomas sat against the wall watching. Rebecca washed dishes in freezing water, just to stay occupied. That afternoon, the storm worsened. Claire went to the storage room for an extra blanket when she heard a dull knock on the door. At first, she thought it was the wind, then again, and again. She approached cautiously and opened the door. A rush of snow burst in. On the threshold stood 2 teens, wrapped in blankets, waist-deep in snow with frostbitten hands. One mumbled something before collapsing. Claire pulled him inside, calling Thomas and Devon, who ran up without a word. Rebecca helped the other one. They laid them by the stove, gave them hot water, compresses, leftover soup. They were survivors from another group. They'd been walking for days, hearing rumors that somewhere north there was still power. They had followed the light. That night, everything shifted into anxious waiting. If these two had made it, others might be out there too, which meant supplies had to stretch further. That evening, Claire called Maya, Jaden, and Thomas into the back room. Together they counted warmth for 3 nights, water for 2, food for maybe 1.5. They were silent. Then Jaden said he could try to raise the antenna on the roof, if the wind let up. Maya marked 2 possible evacuation points left on the map. Night came fast. Claire checked everyone before lying down. Eric slept in Jenny's arms. Rebecca curled up, shivered in her sleep. Thomas stayed awake. Devon kept soldering. Luca slept with a pencil in his hand. Jaden checked the batteries. Maya stayed with the map. Claire sat by the transmitter, in the headphones. Silence again. But now she knew. The storm had brought visitors, which meant someone else might still be coming, and they had to be ready. Chapter 3. Decisions at -20. The cold seeped in slowly, like water into shoes with the first step into a puddle. It was in the walls, the floor, every breath. Claire felt it immediately when she woke. The generator sputtered. Her fingers wouldn't move right, and the mug in her hands felt frozen even after pouring hot water. Outside was white, like the inside of a cloud, and quiet. Too quiet, which meant only one thing. The snow was now so dense it muffled even the wind. She checked the building, 1 room at a time. Eric's breathing was labored but steady. Jenny still held his hand, even in sleep. Maya had dozed off over the map, her face smudged with pencil marks. Rebecca huddled in 2 blankets, trembling. From cold or thought? Who knew? Devon and Jaden argued over a circuit diagram, more quietly than usual, as if aware that noise cost energy. Claire boiled water and sorted what was left. 4 MRE packets, 1 can of meat, 2 packs of crackers. Enough for 2 days if divided among 8. The 3 teens resting in the back barely ate. A small mercy, but a bitter one. She still didn't know if the volunteers who'd taken 2 others would return. Communication was one way, and unreliable. Jaden moved to the window, listening. To the weather, to instinct, to silence. He said they could try transmitting at full power today, but they'd have to shut off everything else, including the heat. Claire nodded. Today would be a day of choices. By noon, they gathered in the main room. Claire laid it out. No drama, just facts. Then asked, "Do we wait or move toward the signal?" Silence, then Maya. "If they stayed, Eric might not make it." Rebecca. "If we go all the way." Thomas said nothing but stood and pulled out his pack. Devon turned to the window, searching the white beyond. Claire already had her answer. They would go. They packed for 2 hours. Claire distributed supplies. Maya took the map and compass. Jenny, the med kit, Jaden, the transmitter and power pack, Luca, the flashlight, Rebecca, the thermos, Thomas, blankets, Devin, tools. Claire took the rest, documents, spare batteries, the building key, a note in case anyone arrived later. Before leaving, she checked the room with the three too weak to travel. For each, a note, a warm bundle, water, a clear instruction, wait, will return. They left at -20. Snow crunched like glass underfoot. They walked in silence, only breath in Claire's rare commands. After an hour, Rebecca faltered. Her face had gone ash gray. She said it was pointless. No one would hear. They'd freeze. Maya stepped up and simply took her hand. Claire didn't interfere. They kept walking. The climb to the ridge was brutal. Wind tore their breath away. Jaden called out coordinates, ready to try the frequency. Claire raised the antenna. Devin knelt in the snow, setting the cable. His hands shook, but he didn't stop. Claire stood in front of them, shielding them from the wind. For the first time that winter, she spoke aloud, "Please, give them a chance." Jaden pressed the button. Silence. Then a click. More silence. Then a voice, barely audible, but real, giving coordinates, their coordinates. "We see you. Hold on. We're coming." Claire's hands fell to her sides. Rebecca cried. Maya covered her face. Jenny clutched Eric. Devin nodded to Jaden. Thomas sat in the snow. Luca drew a thumbs up. Claire looked at them. They were alive. Together. And that was the choice. At -20. Chapter 4. Light from Kerosene and Heart. When the power finally went out, Claire wasn't surprised. The generator had been on its last breath for days. First the kitchen went dark, then the hallways, then the main room. Outside, the wind howled. Claire sighed, pulled out a kerosene lamp, and struck a match. The flame flickered, wavered, then steadied. A warm yellow glow spilled across the room, and the teens' faces emerged from the shadows. No one panicked. In fact, this dim, golden hush felt almost like a storybook moment, where even fear was part of the ritual. Maya moved closer to the map and kept tracing the route. Jenny wrapped Eric tighter in blankets. Luca pulled out his notebook and sketched the flame. Rebecca poured hot water into mugs. Devin fixed the stove door. Jaden tested the radio again. Claire lit a second lamp near the entrance. Left one in the hall. The light felt alive, not like electricity, which was cold and indifferent, but like breath. Kerosene smelled like childhood, like winters at her grandmother's house. In the kitchen, Claire brewed the last of the tea and sliced the final pieces of bread. The teens ate in silence, not somber, but present, as if they knew this wasn't about talking. It was about staying near each other. Later someone, maybe Thomas, suggested laying out tomorrow's route on the floor. Maya grabbed a flashlight. She and Devin made a map from string and batteries. It became a kind of game. Rebecca even smiled. Luca added a tiny drawing of the sun. They put it in the center. Then someone turned on a music player. Battery-powered. A faint, barely there melody played. Not a song, more a memory that music still existed. Claire watched as the room changed. The lamplight and shadows gave it warmth. No magic, just oil, flame, and the sense that inside these walls, safety still lived. That night, Claire took watch at the radio. Jaden joined her. He was quiet but focused. They listened to static, wrote down frequencies. Sometimes he just sat. She poured him tea. At one point, he placed a sketch by the radio, a horizon line and a small dot in the sky. Claire didn't ask. She just nodded. Close to midnight, Rebecca passed by with a mug. She stopped. "Smells like kerosene. Too much." Claire cracked a window, just enough to release the scent, not the heat. "I hate that smell," Rebecca said, but didn't leave. She placed her mug beside Claire's. "And I love it," she added, "because it means we're still here." Most of the teens slept in the main room. Their breathing became a rhythm, their warmth, part of the comfort. Someone mumbled in sleep. Someone whispered a name. Claire looked at the flickering lamp. Her fingers smelled of kerosene. A voice inside her repeated, "One more day, Just don't go out first. Chapter 5. Signal in the dark. Morning began with silence too thick to be normal. Even the wind outside seemed to hush. Listening. Claire woke first, as always. She tucked a blanket over Eric's shoulder, checked the heater, then moved to the radio. Static. Still static. White noise like snow. Jaden was already awake, slumped on the floor, red-eyed but burning with quiet determination. Claire sat beside him. The radio was ancient, from the era of mountain outposts. The batteries were nearly dead, but Jaden had extended their life by rewiring the circuit, adding a makeshift stabilizer from a broken lantern. Devin helped without speaking, handing wires, holding the lamp, tightening bolts. They worked in rhythm. By noon, Thomas brought hot water and leftover porridge. He didn't speak, just set the cups down and sat across from them, staring at the dial as if that would help. Maya and Jenny plotted a new route. The old one was buried in snow. Claire gave them space. They felt responsible, and it made the group stronger. Jenny checked Eric's breathing every hour. He held on, though his cough deepened. Rebecca changed his compress, warmed his hands, pretending not to care. Hope for a miracle in the air was fading. Even Jaden went quiet. Then Claire remembered the basement. There had been a directional antenna once. She and Devin went down. It smelled of mold and dust, but the antenna was there. Rusty, intact. They cleaned it off, brought it upstairs. Jaden sprang to life, rewiring it with scraps from a burnt-out lamp and old solder. By evening, the sky turned gray. Everyone gathered around the radio like a fire. Even Luca had stopped drawing, just sat and watched. Claire felt an invisible thread between them. Not fear, not panic. Anticipation, like waiting for the first snow in November. When Jaden turned the dial and heard a short chirp, no one moved. He tried again. A blip, a break in the static, a pulse. Then, a signal. Not a voice, a rhythm. Coordinates. Slow, clear. He yelled, couldn't help it. Everyone jumped to their feet. Claire rushed over. They jotted the numbers. Far, but reachable. Someone was out there. Someone new. Jenny hugged her brother. Maya unfolded the map. Devin straightened. Thomas closed his eyes and exhaled. Rebecca pulled a pendant from her pocket and held it tighter than ever. Claire stood by the window. Beyond the glass, a storm. Inside, breath. Tomorrow they would go. Because now they had a direction. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were a team, and they had a signal. In the dark, but real. Chapter 6. No one left in the dark. There had been 15 when it all started, but by this morning, only 8 remained. Some were too weak, some taken by med teams. 3 left when the weather broke, and volunteers found living relatives. 1 teen, sick, stayed behind with Mrs. Green at the ruined camp. 2 others, too fragile, were left behind with notes, water, and the promise, we'll be back. But 8 remained, those who couldn't, or wouldn't, leave. They remembered the names of those who hadn't made it. Claire felt the weight of them, even without words. Before dawn, she woke each one. No talking, just a hand on a shoulder. The flashlight's glow was thin, but enough. Movement. Life. Maya double-checked the map she already knew by heart. Jaden put on his pack like a soldier facing his exam. Jenny helped Eric with socks. Rebecca wrapped the thermos in a blanket. Thomas stood by the door with the flashlight, eyes on the snow. Luca adjusted the paper pendant he made, a replica of Rebecca's real one. Devin checked the batteries for the 3rd time. The storm still held. The wind cut their faces, but it was no longer the enemy. It was part of the path. They walked hunched in single file like a tiny caravan. Claire took the rear, watching their rhythm, making sure no one fell behind. Rebecca stumbled first, just a misstep. Devin offered his hand. No words, just a nod. She understood. Maya checked the compass, pointed. Eric coughed. Jenny squeezed his hand tighter. At the 3rd stop, exhaustion flared. Thomas suggested resting longer. Rebecca snapped back. They argued, not loud, but in glances, gestures, tight whispers. Claire stopped it with a look. Later, now, step. They moved on. Claire thought of the 3 left behind, curled in blankets, asleep, each with a note, a bottle of water, a vow. She didn't know if they'd make it back, but she hoped. The hill climb was brutal. Claire counted steps. 16, pause, 20, pause. No one spoke of giving up, because somewhere out there, a signal waited. At the top, the wind died. A white expanse opened before them. But in the white, lights, vehicles, movement. Claire raised her hand. Maya switched on the flashlight. Jaden sent the signal. The radio hissed, then a voice. Raspy, clear. Contact confirmed. Hold position. We're inbound. At first, or disbelief, then release. Jenny clutched Eric. Maya fell to her knees. Rebecca laughed. Oddly, like a child. Thomas sat down, eyes on Claire. She stood tall, sobre, as if still holding everything inside. 20 minutes later, the first orange vests appeared. Rescue workers, volunteers, people. Claire didn't move until each teen was hugged, wrapped in blankets, loaded into warm vehicles. Then, she exhaled. Back at base camp, it was different. Light, voices, warmth. Maya explained how she found the path. Jaden discussed the radio. Jenny held sleeping Eric. Rebecca dozed in a volunteer's lap. Thomas ate soup by the fire. Devin showed his antenna sketches to someone in uniform. Claire was nearby, just there. Later, a rescuer told her Mrs. Green and the teen from the ruined camp were found, alive. Nothing yet on Mr. Caldwell, but a radio intercept 2 days before the storm had mentioned his name and coordinates. Claire memorized them. The sky was still gray, still indifferent, but no longer threatening. The light didn't come from lamps now. It came from people. Claire watched the teens, these stubborn, living kids, smile, talk, sip tea, and she realized they didn't need her. She needed them. And no one was left in the dark. Epilogue. When the lamps go out. A week after the rescue, Claire returned, not out of duty, but instinct. The house that had once been a station stood in silence, as if everything it had endured was now embedded in its walls, its worn railings, its furniture. No power, just footsteps, the crunch of fresh snow. Inside, the air smelled of wood, dust, and something else, faint but familiar. Claire walked through the rooms. Here, Jenny and Eric had slept. There, Devin fixed a dead battery. At that table, Maya traced routes. By the window, Luca had drawn the sky. Every corner held a breath. She took nothing, only memories. The rest stayed. But now she'd come back, to leave one last thing. From her pack, she pulled a box. New candles, a lantern, an old map folded in quarters, and a photograph taken by a volunteer, 8 teens, and her, exhausted, alive, real. Claire placed the photo on the shelf above the radio, then sat by the window. Outside, night was falling. No lamps, no fear, just night. She wasn't waiting for a signal. She wasn't waiting for anyone. She knew. Light wasn't what burned. Light was what remained. She closed her eyes and smiled.